Welcome back, everybody, to What's Your Story? I'm so excited that you have decided to join me here tonight for episode 8 of What's Your Story. I'm so excited to be here. And so I'm Leilani Langdon, the host of this show. And it's a space where we get to journey together alongside others' stories so that we can be inspired to know, own, and share ours. And so come on in as you're coming in. If you are part of the What's Your Story family, you know what we do. And what we do is that we go ahead and say hi. You show some love in the comments. You let me know that you're here so I can shout you out. If this is your first time watching, go ahead and let me know where you're watching from. I want to go ahead and shout you out. But as always, I just want to take an opportunity to just say how lucky I am to be able to journey with you on Sundays. I am so excited that I get to be part of this experience. Hey, Ryan, good to see you. Ryan, I don't think you're driving today, and that makes me really excited. Hey, Kaladi, how's it going, girl? Hey. Adrian watching from the kitchen, joining in today. But I just want to let you know that this space is a safe space. The chat and the What's Your Story family, we are people who are affirming, encouraging. We're here to empower. We're here to journey alongside the individuals who are brave enough to share their story. And so I'm just so happy I get a chance to do that with each one of you on this Sunday night. Listen, Ryan, I love your dedication. Can I just give Ryan a hand clap, because Ryan is part of our What's Your Story family, and whether he's driving, whether he's in the park, he is supporting, and so I'm so grateful for you. But tonight, if you are new to What's Your Story, we always start by having our What's Your Story highlight. Now, here's why I'm so excited about tonight's highlight. Guys, a couple of weeks ago, we had DJ and Cherie here speaking and sharing their story of faith. And so many of you guys were blown away. One of the hashtags that came out of that was hashtag mass resignations, okay? There was literally a movement in the comments about resignating from our jobs in faith, literally walking in faith based on their story. And so we said it as a joke, but I want to tell you that tonight's highlight is a result of that story. And so listen, I need you to get your party hats ready. If you are part of our What's Your Story fam, you know that our goal for What's Your Story highlight is to celebrate people. So get your party hats ready, because I want to see them in the comments, because I'm about to show us what our What's Your Story highlight is. All right, let me get it ready. Here we go. Let's journey together and celebrate Sophie Fullwood. Sophie, girl, if you are watching, I just want to take the time and celebrate you. But here is her story. Sophie, I just suffered a panic attack. I felt like I needed encouragement and needed God to help show me the way in which I should go. I stumbled across the podcast with DJ and Cherie, and I figured, oh, I know them. Let's see what this is about. The moment they shared part of their story about raising children God's way, I was hooked. Then they continued to share their story, and Cherie talked about how and why God led her to quit her job. I had been contemplating if I should quit my job for almost a year. I was so indecisive. I was waiting on God to show me whether I should stay or go. Their stories spoke volumes to me about having faith. I felt encouraged to pray more for the little things as well as the big. That same week, I had the discussion with my husband and my family, and they all agreed. I needed to quit, but I wasn't ready, so I kept praying. And it wasn't until that Friday morning, while I was reading a devotional, that I told God, I'm not moving until you make it clear to me. I came across a part in the devotional that said, unless otherwise directed, I cautiously move ahead in what honestly appears to be the best direction, consciously trusting God to confirm or to restrain by either opening or shutting doors. Mercy. When I don't have a clear answer, I move ahead trusting God to show me. And in Isaiah 30:21, it says, your ears will hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. Whenever you turn to the right or to the left, amongst other examples. That was my confirmation from the Holy Spirit. I then called my supervisor and quit right then and there. 3 supervisors that I spoke to all understood and literally told me I was doing the right thing. I felt at peace, and now I'm simply leaning on God and listening out for his voice to show me my next path. That is when I took my first step onto the deep waters. Guys, I just want to take a moment to celebrate Sophie for that beautiful highlight. And as we have people coming in and just joining us, guys, yes, Clarissa, woohoo, Sophie gets a hand clap. Throw up those party hats if you have them ready. Let's celebrate her because she took a step in faith as a result of hearing one of the stories on the show. And yes, Adrian, mass resignations. We were joking about this, but people literally were moved through their story to take the step that God was asking them to take. So I just want to celebrate Sophie and remind you that if you have been inspired to know, own, or share your story, or take a step in the direction you believe God is calling you to do, go ahead and let me know. Share that story with me. We want to celebrate you here on What's Your Story live. And so we're going to jump into our Did You Know moment. Now, I can't, here we go. Hey, there we go. Our celebratory emojis popping up as we continue to just celebrate and honor her courage and her bravery. Now, did you know that people would rather be electrically shocked than be alone with their own thoughts? I'm going to say that again. Did you know that people would rather be electrically shocked than be alone with their own thoughts? Researchers at the University of Virginia decided to take an experiment a step forward, and they took participants and they put them in a lab room for 15 minutes in which they could push a button and shock themselves if they wanted to. Now, the results were startling because even though all participants had previously said that they would actually pay money to avoid being shocked with electricity, 67% of men and 25% of women chose to inflict pain on themselves rather than just sit there quietly and think. I'm going to let that sit for a second. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to inflict pain on themselves rather than sit there quietly and think. Isn't that crazy? Let me tell you something. Now, we think that sometimes the reason why it's hard for us to sit still with our own thoughts is because of the pain that it may cause, right? Or the difficulty of thinking about our experiences. But in fact, this research identified that the 2 main reasons why most participants would willingly shock themselves rather than sit quietly for 15 minutes and think about thinking was 2 reasons: boredom and not knowing what to think of. Now, let me tell you why that's powerful. Pico Iyer, the author of The Art of Stillness, says this: experience gives us memories. Reflection gives them meaning. I'm going to say that again. Experience gives us memories. Reflection gives them meaning. Now, reflecting, sitting and thinking, being still, this is a muscle that a lot of us have not exercised. And so when we don't exercise a muscle, this muscle in particular, we forfeit the ability to give meaning to our experiences. And the reason why that's so powerful is because our stories have meaning. They have implications for the lessons that we've learned, how we have grown, what we are grateful for. But whenever we decide that that it's too difficult to sit with our thoughts. Whenever we choose to do something else instead of reflecting and sitting, we lose the opportunity to gain that meaning, which then empowers us and helps us know, own, and share our stories. And so if we can't gain meaning from our stories, then how can we give meaning to others? And so listen, yes, Ryan says, please don't let it sit quietly. Don't let it sit there quietly too long. Absolutely. She's preaching. Thanks, Edsel. I appreciate you. Clady says, boredom, was just talking about that today. It is difficult feeling to feel. Absolutely. Absolutely. Experience gives us memories. Reflection gives them meaning. Absolutely. And so today, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you this week to sit, to reflect, and not be afraid to do that. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can reflect on, because part of the reasons why we struggle to reflect is because we're uncomfortable with nothing, with the nothingness of that. And so first things first, ask yourself about an experience. What did I learn? What's the meaning of this? And what am I grateful for? And so those are three simple things you can do. And I'm challenging you today to sit this week, to sit and reflect, and to remember that your story has meaning. But in order for it to have meaning, you have to reflect, you have to sit, and you have to be present to that experience. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Deanne as we move on to our story for tonight. Deanne.
Hi.
How are you, girl?
I'm all right. How are you?
I am good. It is so good to see you. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself as we have comments coming in. Glad said I avoided sitting this week. Lots of restlessness. Absolutely. And yes, Edsel, listen, that's a running emoji. If I've said this before, if I wasn't connected to my headphones, I would or had to be present, I would be running around. But Deanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I live in Kansas, very close to Kansas City, and we actually have only been living here for about 2.5 months.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I've been married to my husband for almost 12 years. He's a youth pastor, which is why we moved here, and I'm at home with our three kids. They're 8.5, 7, and 4.5.
So you are busy.
Yeah.
You are busy. And where did you guys live prior to?
We lived in Southern California.
Big difference.
Big difference. Oh yeah.
So guys, as Deanne is here, go ahead and drop your hellos, show her some
Hi,
love.
Adrian.
And I want to remind you, as you're watching and as we're journeying with Deanne through her story, first things first, know that if you have any questions as you hear and journey alongside her, drop them in the chat, and we're going to address them towards the end. But also, if you hear a word, if you are inspired by something she's saying, if something sticks out to you, do that as well. And then make sure that you have your hand clap emoji ready, because we want to just make sure that we are present with her today. So go ahead, Deanne. As always, every single week I ask this question, and I'm going to ask you this question. So Deanne, tell us, what's your story?
Okay, so my story that I'm sharing today is going to focus on kind of my story as being a mom. So it started fresh out of undergrad. My husband and I, we moved to Philadelphia. He started as an intern pastor, and I started graduate school. About 1 month into graduate school, I got pregnant.
Oh man.
And this was a big shocker
Right.
because I had been on birth control since I'd gotten married. So I'd been on birth control for like 2 years by this point, and I was still on it.
Oh
And I
wow. Okay.
suddenly got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. So this moment kind of changed the rest of my future in a very significant way. And because of getting pregnant while on birth control, and because of other things that were happening, my husband and I kind of felt like, okay, God is doing something. His plans for us to be parents is now.
Right,
and
clearly.
and I felt I felt strongly convicted that I was going to be home and raise the kids. This was kind of my primary role now. So I actually pulled out of school. We didn't know anyone in Philly, so I didn't really, I didn't know anyone I could even leave my
Right.
daughter with, or sorry, But anyways, I pulled out of school, and because I had not been preparing mentally at all yet to become a parent, I started to freak out. So,
That's
I
the
was
truth.
still really young, and I was just
Mm,
thinking about all these areas of life that I still had so much growth in. So I
mm,
gathered all these books and all these resources, and I was like, I have to read all this stuff because I'm not ready. I'm not mature enough. I'm not spiritual enough. And
wow.
I started reading a bunch, and I just completely overwhelmed myself.
Wow.
And I felt like God spoke into that and was like, you're putting so much energy and focus into becoming an expert in all these things, when
Mm,
really the only thing you need to do is spend time with the expert every day,
mercy.
because I've called you and I'm going to guide you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I did everything, that you're supposed to do when you're pregnant. I ate right, I exercised, kept the stress down, but I made sure my focus in preparing for a mom was that relationship with God.
Yeah.
And my pregnancy was excellent, had no issues. I had a very successful natural birth, and my daughter Eden came out perfectly strong and healthy.
Aw.
And she developed how every parent hopes their child will. She hit all the
Yeah.
milestones, was just doing great. And of course, I thought the reason why she was doing so great was all because I made good choices during
Mm.
pregnancy and all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, not so much later, I got pregnant again, and I did everything exactly the same as last time. And this pregnancy, I think, was even better than the first one. My
Really?
birth was even better than the first one, and my son Ezra came out strong and healthy too. But a few months down the line, we could just tell something was different with him.
Mm.
And he was always fisted in this right hand. He hardly ever would open it. His abdomen area was very, very floppy. And when he would try to move around, he would only use the left side of his body.
Hmm.
And I was kind of in denial at first because he was so little, and I just
Yeah.
couldn't imagine anything was wrong with him.
Sure.
So I just kind of pushed it away for as long as I could. But
Yeah.
it eventually got to the point where it was like, this
Something's
is pretty
wrong.
obvious. Yeah. So I remember one night, Nick and the kids are sleeping, and I just go to the bathroom and I just sit there and I just sobbed. And I
Hmm.
finally admitted to myself, there's a big problem here. I have
Hmm.
no idea what it is, but I have to do something. I can't keep ignoring it.
Yeah.
So I called the doctor, made an appointment. And in the meantime, I don't recommend people do this. I started to
Oh,
Google search.
that's the worst thing anyone can
I
ever
know.
do.
I know. I would like perfectly phrase my son's symptoms and search them. And I read all these articles, and I found all these thread conversations between parents.
No.
And I went to my husband and I said, Nick, I know what happened. This is what happened to him. This is what he's going to be diagnosed with. And Nick was like, wait.
Slow down, Dr. Deanne.
He's like, Deanne, he hasn't even been to the doctor yet. Like, you're
Whew.
freaking yourself out. Just chill
Right.
out. And I was like, okay, I'll try.
Yes.
But we go to the doctor, and immediately she knows that he has. Yeah, it is the worst idea. She immediately knows that he needs to go to a neurologist. So we
Wow.
go see a neurologist, and they order an MRI. And a few weeks later, we get a phone call, and they say, we found evidence that your son Ezra had a stroke when you were pregnant with him.
What?
And now he has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And believe it or not, that is exactly what I told Nick. I think he had a stroke, and I think he's going to be diagnosed with
Oh,
cerebral palsy.
oh my gosh.
And they said to me, we have no idea why this happened, but you need to know there was nothing you did to cause it, and there's nothing you could have done to prevent it.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I know those words were meant to be very comforting, and I appreciated them.
Sure.
But at that moment, and for a long time, I just couldn't accept it as true. I thought,
Mm,
how in the world can you tell me that a stroke when a baby is in the womb was just caused by nothing and I couldn't have stopped it?
sure. That's
So
so
I
hard to
felt,
hear.
Yeah, I felt so completely out of control at this point of my life.
Mm.
Just felt like the world was falling apart. And I carried this sense of grief, or sorry, this sense of guilt that I had missed something when I was pregnant
Mm.
and I made this happen. So
Wow.
now I think Eden was like 2.5, Ezra was 1, and I'm suddenly thrown into the world of therapy. And in the beginning, Ezra had like 5 therapies a week. So it was just
Wow. One after
complete
another.
change, and my future again is just changing more and more significantly from when I was in graduate school.
Right.
And the thing was, I would watch Ezra in therapy and he just struggled to sit and to crawl and to walk because of this weakness. It was all on the right side of his body. And it was so devastating. At the same time, I was starting to realize how, okay, clearly I can't control everything. Clearly I can't fix everything, and I don't even know everything that's going to happen. And so as he was starting to show me how he needed to depend on me in this very special way because I could do so much that he couldn't, I was starting to learn how to depend on God in a different way too, because I was starting to realize my limitations as a human.
Yes.
Um, then a little bit later, I got pregnant for the third time, and I was definitely kind of nervous that my
Sure.
third child was going to have a stroke too, and have the same issue. But
Yeah.
again, I had a very healthy pregnancy. My midwife at that time actually called me the world's healthiest patient because I was just doing really good. And had a great natural birth again. And my
Yeah.
son Salem came out. He got a 10 on the APGAR score. He just was healthy.
Right.
But a few months down the line, we could tell something wasn't right. And the thing that scared me the most was it was not at all the same thing that Ezra had.
Wow.
And
So
it
it was
was,
different.
in my opinion, it was a lot scarier. So he had no weakness at all. He wasn't hitting milestones though.
Sure.
And cognitively and socially, he was very, very different. So I wasn't in denial this time. I called the doctor right away. And unfortunately, I didn't learn my lesson. And I started to Google
Google it
search again. And I could not figure it out though. And I came across so many sicknesses and syndromes that just made me so scared that I
again.
just made myself stop searching. So we finally go to the doctor, and he didn't know, what the issue was exactly. So he referred us to a bunch of doctors. And I think we went to like ophthalmology, audiology, neurology, genetics, cardiology, all these different places. And then they started him in all the therapies too. So I think it was like a span of 4 weeks where he had like 10 evaluations. And it was just so stressful. Finally, after about 2 months, we got a phone call from the genetics department, and they told us to come in. And they said, so we found that Salem has a deletion on his 5th chromosome. The thing is, we've looked through all the medical history and genetics, and we didn't find a single case that was the same as his. And so we actually don't know what to tell you about what he's going to be like and how he's going to develop. So what we've done is we just found 10 cases that were kind of similar, and we found all the symptoms that were consistent with all 10 cases, and we've made this list for you, and this is maybe what you can expect. So I had a list with seizures, autistic features, cognitive impairment, hearing loss, just all these incredibly overwhelming things on them.
Yes.
And then I hear her say to me, we don't know why this happened, but there was nothing that you did to cause this. There's nothing you could have done to prevent it. It was just going to happen. And again, I just couldn't believe that statement. It made me feel like, okay, somebody's not telling me the truth or something like that. But yeah, I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't believe that nothing made this happen and it was just going to happen. But anyways, at this point, I think Eden was about 4.5 and Ezra was about 3. Salem was like 7 or 8 months old. And now between the two boys, we have like 6, 7 therapies a week.
Oh.
This was a really, really difficult time of life. We had just moved to a new community. Since Nick is in ministry, we've moved several times. And this community we moved into, we loved. They were such a wonderful community. But as far as raising children, it was very, very high achieving. And so I'm around parents all the time who, oh yeah, my kid's in swimming and mine's in piano and mine's in the children's choir. And, from the time they're 3 or 4, they're starting all these things. And I'm there and everyone asks me what I've been doing all week. And all we've been at is therapy. None of my kids had started anything. I felt like I was failing as a parent. I felt like I didn't fit in. My kids didn't fit in. And I just felt so isolated and alone. At the same time, Salem's development was going very, very badly. He would have, one speech evaluation, and then months later, we'd have him evaluated again, and he would make almost no progress at all. We would go months at a time where he wouldn't gain any weight. And I just felt so discouraged, so defeated. I hated to think about his future because it just made me too depressed. And I had such a hard time accepting that this was my real life.
Yeah.
But what I did start to notice, though, over time is that even though Salem's development was really slow and sometimes didn't feel like it was even doing anything, I started to see that he was growing in knowing who I was and knowing that I cared about him. And so even though, yeah, and so all those things we know that, okay, what matters about people is that they're valued as a person and that we love each other. It doesn't matter how successful and how talented you are. And I always knew and heard that, but it really started to get in because of course I did not love Salem based on how much he could do. I just loved him because he was my child. And so now that same idea that I'd always heard about God made sense. God doesn't care about how much I'm achieving. God doesn't care about how successful I am. All he cares about is that I know him and that I know that he loves me.
Woo.
And man, let me tell you, that changed my life. I was seeing how my boys, they were so limited in certain things, but they weren't limited in how much they were loved by me and therefore loved by God. And so their future started to not be so fearful for me because I knew they were covered by God's love.
Wow.
A little bit later, Eden's now 7, Ezra is 5, and Salem is 3. I get pregnant again. And I had been doing the special needs life for a while and I did not want to do it anymore. I was just tired. And so thinking about having another child was so hard. I did not want another child. I was so worried about what it was going to be like. I felt so guilty that I didn't want another child. I was thinking, oh man, this one's going to have special needs too. We're going to have 10 therapies a week now. I'm literally like,
you're just seeing all these things come to pass in your mind and they feel real.
Yes, they do. And I really didn't believe I could make it. Like all that stress was taking a toll on me. And I thought, I will not survive this. Like, I really don't think I will. Fortunately, I didn't stay there mentally. And I started to move into this thought that, hey, maybe this baby's actually going to be fine.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're going to end our parenting journey with just a lot of celebration and joy instead of all this loss and hardship. And so we actually named this baby Hope because we felt so much hope in our hearts for this child. Unfortunately, at about 11 weeks, so this was New Year's Eve, the night before 2020. This is how my 2020 started, okay?
Oh, wow.
I start to feel really, really bad. So I go to urgent care. They do all these evaluations on me. And the urgent care doctor comes in and she says, so we found out that the baby's heartbeat is slowing down. And I'm so sorry, but this is the early signs of a miscarriage.
No.
And I couldn't believe I was hearing this again. We don't know why this happens, but there's nothing you did to cause this. There's nothing you could have done to prevent it. It was just going to happen. Now, the symptoms that a woman goes through when she has a miscarriage, I had for 4 weeks straight.
Wow.
The baby's heartbeat finally stopped somewhere in the first week, but my body would not release the baby. And it was like my body was saying, no, we're not giving up. We're not ending this way. This is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And it was so devastating. But of course, the baby had already passed away. I had lost so much blood and was in bed most of the time. I was so weak. So I had to have the baby removed. And the place where they had this procedure done on me was in the same place that all pregnant women have their checkups. So I go into this room. Nick has to stay in the waiting room. I'm fully awake. You know, they suction the baby out. I come back out and I'm just in this room full of all these happy pregnant women. Some have their, new ultrasound pictures that they're looking at and showing their husbands. And I just go over to Nick and I just fall on him and I sob. And I didn't care how many people were there. I didn't care how loud I was crying. I had literally lost hope in more ways than one. And I just kind of, got depressed for a while. Physically, I was so weak still. And I remember, I think about a week later, I went for a walk by myself just to think and process all these things. And I was very angry. And I was thinking about, it was in my womb that Ezra had his stroke. It was in my womb that Salem's chromosomes, deleted some genes. And it was in my womb that Hope died. And I was just like, God, what is wrong with my womb?
Mercy.
And I felt like I heard, Jesus say to me, that's why I came in the womb. And it just broke me. I mean, all that anger and everything just kind of broke and flooded out. And I looked back on all these years of hard work with my boys, myself with the hard work, but all these, therapists and specialists and all these people. And it's like I suddenly saw for the first time the extent of what Jesus did to get to that cross, to set me free from my limitations, just like we were working so hard to set my boys free from their limitations. And all these things that I was longing for, I was longing for answers. Like, what happened? Somebody please tell me what happened. Why is there no one who knows? I wanted healing. I wanted some specialist doctor come up with a brand new treatment that was going to fix them, or somebody's prayer for healing to actually work, because we'd had many of those and they weren't answered. But I realized for the first time, I will get answers because Jesus is the one who knows what happened. And they will get healed because Jesus will heal them, and it's going to last forever. The reality of what I'm living in now is not my reality for eternal life. And so seeing all of those kinds of things, that statement that there wasn't anything I did to cause it and there wasn't anything I could have done to prevent it, that I couldn't accept all that time, I finally realized it was true. Because this battle that I'm in, it's not between me and the world. It's between these powers of good and evil, but good has already won.
Yes.
And so after all of that, I still live in the thick of the special needs life and just parenting and stuff. I don't have perfect days every day, but I have a peace and a joy every day now that I didn't used to have before, because I already know that everything I long for, I have, and victory is mine, So I look back at my life, before I had kids and all that stuff. And I see, I used to be so much more comfortable. Life was so much easier. I was a lot happier with how things were going. But I was forgetful of Christ every day because I could handle my life.
Yeah.
But
Mercy. Woo.
now, now that I get who God is and what he's done for me on a completely different level, I
Mm.
long for him so much. I don't forget him
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And that has made this whole journey worth it in so many ways because
Wow.
my present life, I mean, I was never going to avoid tragedy. None of us can.
Right.
But my present life now can be peace and joy filled because I've understood the reality of my life because of Christ. So that is the story that I'm
Wow.
sharing today.
Wow. Gio says, I needed this. God all has already won. You know, Deanne, and I think about we've been talking about deep waters, and this theme has kind of kept coming up, and it's amazing to me how God, you know, positioned you to be those boys' mom, right?
Hmm.
And to be in a place where you need God in order to make it.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
him. My present life now can be peace and joy filled because of Christ. Absolutely. Deanne, Michaela says, my mind is so blown. Just the beauty of God, of seeing, and do you see God in them? Do you see God in your experiences with them?
Absolutely. They have taught me so much
Mm,
more about love, which God is love,
yeah,
than anyone else in my life. And they've been in my life for such a short amount of time,
yeah,
you know? Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. They're a gift to me, just the way
Wow.
they are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. So, Deanne, how did you come to a place where you were able to share your story and overcome some of the anger, right? And you talked about a little bit of that, but how did you come to a place to be able to share your story from a place of peace and love and joy and understanding and contentment? So, if you can share a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So one, I never thought, oh, God is the one who's caused this. Um, he's mad at me, or I don't believe in him anymore because of all these bad things. And I attribute that to my upbringing. Like, I think that was really ingrained in me. And so I knew my faith had to make a difference. Like,
Mm,
these were the moments in my life where it's like, okay, now this is where my faith is supposed to help. And this is
yes.
where it's supposed to actually be meaningful. So I
Yeah.
would I would just cling to a promise in the Bible or the character of God or something, and I would just
Mm,
hold on to it so tightly, and eventually God would show up. um, I thought in our faith community, at least the ones that I've been a part of, I've always felt like there's such a lack of people of faith being open about the struggle and then
mm,
holding tightly to the faith and witnessing God come through, and therefore making our
mm,
faith make sense and matter and have meaning. Whereas I feel like I hear stories all the time of people leaving because those
mm.
hardships came. And so my
Yes.
husband and I were very dedicated from the very beginning. Like, we're going to be open. We're going to show people our hearts. Not that you need to tell everybody everything, but we wanted to people.
There we go. I think we have you back.
Can you see me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I also not quite sure what I was saying, but I knew for myself
Yeah.
that it's unhealthy to hold that all in.
Mm.
Um, so I didn't want to be stuck in my pain. I didn't want to
Woo.
stunt my emotional
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
growth
yeah.
and stunt my spiritual growth.
Yes.
So that's another reason why I shared.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a friend. She's a counselor. She's like, she could be my mother, and she's very special to me. But she told me one time how, as Christians, we're always growing, right, in character.
Yes.
We're wanting to become more like Christ.
Yes.
When we share with each other that we need help or that we're hurting,
Mm-hmm.
we're giving our brothers and sisters in Christ that opportunity to grow in character, because now they
Mm,
have an opportunity to help you and
yes.
to extend love, um,
Yes.
and serve you. So those were some of the reasons why I think I
Wow.
overcame and didn't just stay in the anger and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's so powerful that you say that, because a lot of us have these lived experiences that are painful to us and cause us anger, frustration, right? They have these we experience them negatively because we're human, and that's okay. But the difference is that, in order for, almost like a part of the healing process, what I'm hearing you say is that involved you not staying stuck. And not staying stuck meant getting it out, right? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
actually getting it out. So, what has sharing your story inspired you to do?
So we started a blog, my husband and I, right around when Salem was, I think, getting diagnosed. And I write on that blog. I mean, you can read about Ezra's story, Salem's story, my
Yes.
miscarriage is on there. And I mean, I basically just, it's like my processing experience of
Mm,
tragedy and, how my faith plays into it, God kind of coming, showing up, and how it now makes sense, or there's
yes.
comfort, or there's healing,
Mhm.
or whatever. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So,
No, so I just wanted to share that picture because, one, that's her beautiful family. I mean, listen, your family's so beautiful. Look at these beautiful children.
yeah, they are
Um,
cute.
but her blog is whatever is, um, and I believe it's whatever is dot life. Correct?
Yeah, whatever is
Yes.
dot
And
life.
so we'll leave that in the comments, because, as someone, one of the reasons why I asked Deanne to share her story was because I'd come across her blog and read one of her posts, and I was so inspired and moved. When I tell you that she is a gifted writer, she is a gifted writer, and she shares her stories, each one of these stories in detail, and how she experienced them and what God has done and how he's brought her to these spaces, and when you where it's only God. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're listening, go check out her blog. We have it linked in the comments, so you can continue her story, because your story's not over, Deanne.
Yeah, I
you
just
know
wrote about our move in there.
Your story is not over. It is just continuing. And it's like God is going to continue to paint this beautiful picture for you. And those boys are going to continue to grow in grace and love. And they're going to know about who Jesus is because of you and because of your example to them and to Eden and to your family. And so, he said, I've seen you and your husband in movies. I've seen Ryan, you're a joker. But listen, I am gonna show them again because it's such a beautiful family. I can't just beautiful. And then Salem is which one?
He's the little one on my lap.
Oh, I
Mhm.
love his little face. His little,
Yeah,
like, yeah,
he's
this is my
super cute.
family and what? And you have Ezra in the plaid and Eden.
Mhm,
Beautiful, beautiful
mhm.
family. Deanne, I just wanna say thank you. Debbie says, yes, I agree. Deanne is a gifted writer. She has a book in her. Girl, listen. Deanne,
Thank you, Debbie.
I completely agree. Your story is beautiful, and I can't wait to continue to see what God is going to do as a result. Um, anyway, thank you so much, Deanne, for joining us tonight, for sharing your story. Guys, in the comments, give her a round of applause with your emojis, just to say thank you to her. But Deanne, again, thank you so much, girl. I'm going to send you backstage, and I'll chat with you in a moment.
Okay.
Guys, man, what a beautiful story Deanne's was. I'm so grateful that she had the courage to come and share. Deanne, you're just getting some praise here for your courage and your bravery. Yes, please pin this. It has been pinned. Guys, go read the rest, a lot of her story. Such an amazing and powerful story. Listen, I just want to remind you, like I said earlier, your stories have meaning, and it's through sitting with them, reflecting, giving them to God, that He can transform them. He can use them to continue to grow you and to impact the people around you. Your stories, God wants to use to bless others, to move others, and to inspire others. And so, as always, I want to encourage you to know, own, and share your story. And join us next week as we connect with Galati and Mike, who have a beautiful debt free story that has taught them the lessons they needed to journey life as parents with their sons. So, as always, thank you for joining. Share, subscribe, and like, and we'll see you next week.